My name is Emma. I'm 28, and what I'm about to tell you actually happened at my little sister's wedding last summer. 2 weeks before the wedding, my sister called me and said, "Please don't come. You'll just embarrass me in front of his family." I went anyway. I sat in the very last row, in the cheapest dress I owned, next to a broken speaker. A guest handed me her dirty plate. She assumed I was catering staff. I smiled and took it. And then, during the reception, the groom stood up, tapped his glass, and asked 200 people to look at me. "Before we begin," he said, "I need to honor someone. My boss, the founder and CEO of the company that saved my life." Then he pointed at me, the girl they told to stay home. The whole room turned. My mother's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. But that is not the twist. That is not even close to the twist. Because sitting 4 tables away, watching all of it, was the one man who had already tried to destroy me once. And in my purse that night was a letter I did not even know existed, a letter my father wrote before he died. So before you judge my family for what they did, stay with me until the very end. Because at the end, you tell me in the comments, who should have been embarrassed that day? To understand that wedding, I have to take you back 9 years. In my family, there were 2 daughters, Chloe, the golden one, and me, the disappointment. It wasn't always like that. When our dad was alive, the house had 2 children in it, not a winner and a loser. He used to say, "Emma, don't chase their approval. Build something real." He gave me his old watch the week before he passed. Scratched, cheap, the glass already cloudy. I never took it off. Remember that watch. It comes back at the end of this story, and it will not be the way you expect. After he died, my mother decided the family needed a success, and she chose Chloe. Chloe went to the expensive school. Chloe got the praise. Chloe got the down payment on the condo. And me? At 20, I dropped out of law school to build a company from my bedroom floor. To my family, that wasn't ambition. That was failure. Proof that I was the broken one. At every holiday, my mother had a script. "Chloe's doing so well." Then a pause. Then, "Emma's still figuring things out." 9 years. She said, "still figuring things out" for 9 years. What none of them ever asked was what my company actually did. Not once. Not in 9 years. Not a single question about the thing I gave my entire 20s to. When I was 10, I sold friendship bracelets at school and saved $40 in a glass jar. My mother called it silly. My father called it a business, and he told everyone at his work about it. He was the only person who ever looked at me and saw something more than a problem to be fixed. He got sick when I was 19. Pancreatic. By the time they found it, they were already talking in months, not years. I sat with him every night in that hospital room. Chloe visited twice. Twice in 5 months. My mother told everyone Chloe couldn't come because her studies were at a critical stage. I was there the night he stopped being able to hold a pen. I remember that because he got frustrated about it. He kept asking my mother for paper. She kept telling him to rest. I didn't think anything of it. Remember that too. The paper. His last clear words to me were, "You are going to build something, Emma. Don't let them make you small." 2 days later, he was gone. At the funeral, my mother introduced Chloe to everyone. She introduced me to no one. I stood at the back of my own father's funeral, and I understood exactly where I stood in that family. The house got very cold for me after that, so I stopped going home. And I started working. For 3 years, I lived on instant noodles and slept under my own desk more nights than I want to admit. I built a software company that helps small businesses survive their first year. Restaurants, salons, one-truck movers. The kind of people banks laugh at. The kind of people my father used to fix cars for. I named it Meridian because a meridian is the line where the sun is at its highest. My father used to say, everyone gets one day like that. I never told my family a single number. Every time I visited, I let them believe I was struggling. It was easier than watching them pretend to care the second they smelled money. I told myself I was protecting my peace. Honestly, part of me was also waiting to be asked. Just once. By year 4, Meridian had 240 employees and offices in 3 cities. We were the kind of place people were proud to work for. I hired carefully, and I paid better than I had to. I had one rule that everyone in the building knew. We do not humiliate people. Not clients, not vendors, not each other. I built that rule out of 9 years of family dinners. But it almost didn't survive. In year 2, my own business partner tried to force me out. His name was Marcus Vale. Older, polished, the kind of man who has never once been interrupted in a meeting. He came in as an investor and stayed as a partner. For a while, I actually trusted him. Then the company got valuable, and Marcus decided the founder was the only thing standing between him and it. He told our investors I was too emotional to lead. He used the word unstable in a room I wasn't in. He tried to take the clients, keep the code, and leave me the debt. He had already drafted the paperwork. For 1 week, I thought I was going to lose the only thing my father ever told me to build. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I sat in a parking garage at 2 in the morning and cried into my steering wheel. But I had done one quiet thing my father taught me. I kept every record. Every email. Every signed agreement. Every version of every document dated. I walked into that boardroom with a folder 3 inches thick, and I laid the truth on the table, page by page. I didn't raise my voice once. I didn't have to. Paper doesn't need to shout. Marcus resigned by Friday. On his way out, he stopped at my door and said something I never forgot.
Enjoy it, Emma. Companies like this always come back on the market. I'm patient.
I laughed it off. I was 24. I thought that was just something a beaten man says at a door. Remember his name. Marcus Vale. He is going to be at that wedding. And from that week, I learned the lesson that this whole story is built on. The world will underestimate you. Let it. Keep the proof, and let the truth speak when it actually counts. 2 years after Marcus left, I hired a quiet, hard-working manager named Daniel Reyes. His resume was a mess. A failed startup, an 8-month gap, a reference who perfectly remembered him. Everyone in that hiring meeting said no. I said, give me 10 minutes with him. I asked him one question. What did the failure teach you that success wouldn't have? He said that I hired people I liked instead of people I needed, and that I was too proud to ask for help until it was too late. I hired him that afternoon. Best decision I made that year. I promoted him twice in 2 years. He never knew I was the one pushing his name. To him, I was a name on an all-hands call, a photo on a website, someone far away. Daniel had no idea who my family was, and I had no idea who he was dating. Then, one Sunday in March, my mother called me, breathless with excitement. She hadn't called me in 4 months.
Chloe's engaged to a wonderful young man. He has a real career, Emma. A real one.
The way she said, real career, I knew exactly where it was aimed. It always was. I congratulated her. I asked the young man's name. She said, Daniel Reyes. I put the phone down very slowly, because I knew exactly one Daniel Reyes. My sister was marrying one of my own employees, and neither of them knew who I really was. I sat on my kitchen floor for a long time trying to decide what an honest person does with that. I could have called Chloe right then and told her everything. I didn't. Not because I was plotting, because I was tired, because every time I've handed that family a piece of good news about me, they've danced a way to make it small. So I decided to say nothing and just be a normal guest at my sister's wedding. That plan lasted about 9 days. 9 days later, my general counsel Priya closed my office door. She never closes my office door. She had a printout in her hand, a wedding registry. My sister's name next to Daniel Reyes. "Emma," she said, "is this your sister?" I said yes. She sat down like the chair had gotten heavier. Because here is the thing nobody tells you about running a company. A family secret stops being personal the moment it touches payroll. Daniel managed a team of 19 people. He approved budgets, he sat in on promotion decisions. And in 6 weeks, he was going to be the CEO's brother-in-law, and nobody in the building would know. Priya said the sentence that ruined my month. If this comes out after the wedding instead of before, it looks like a cover-up. She was right. 2 of our biggest clients had ethics clauses. One had walked away from a competitor over exactly this. The board's audit chair wanted it handled cleanly, disclose it, and move Daniel off anything with budget authority, which in plain English meant demoting the man 2 weeks before his wedding for something he didn't do. I asked for another option. Priya gave me 3, and all 3 ended with the same sentence: "You have to disclose before the wedding." So now I had a deadline. Tell them who I am before that wedding, in the middle of their happiest month, or protect myself and quietly cost Daniel his job. I want you to understand something. Everyone assumes the powerful person in a story like this has all the choices. Sitting in that office, I had exactly 2, and I hated both of them. I picked up my phone to call my sister and finally tell her the truth. She called me first. 2 weeks before the wedding, my sister called me. Not to invite me, to warn me.
"Emma, listen. Daniel's family is really impressive. Doctors, lawyers, business people. And you're you. If you show up looking like a mess, it reflects on me."
I asked her, quietly, "You don't want your own sister at your wedding?"
"Just sit in the back. Don't talk to his colleagues. Please. Just this one day, let me have it."
His colleagues. She had no idea that I signed their paychecks. The words were right there in my mouth. "Chloe, I own the company. Chloe, your fiancé works for me." And then she said one more thing, and it closed my throat.
"Mom's right about you, you know. You always make everything about yourself."
So I said okay. I said congratulations. And I hung up without telling her anything. I sat in the dark holding my father's watch for a long time that night. And I made a decision. I was going to that wedding, just as I was, and I was going to tell them there, in person, before the ceremony. I never got the chance. Because 6 days before the wedding, Priya called me at 11 at night. "Emma," she said, "someone is buying up Meridian's secondary shares, quietly, through 3 different vehicles. Small pieces, old employees cashing out, an early investor's estate, nothing that would trip an alarm on its own. Together, it was almost 19% of my company, and every trail ended at the same advisory firm." Priya said the name. Ashcroft Vale Partners. Vale. 4 years later, Marcus Vale was coming back exactly the way he said he would, patiently, from the side. I opened my laptop, and I looked at the wedding website my sister had made, the one I'd been sent as a formality. And there, on the page for the groom's family, was a photograph at a charity gala. Daniel's uncle, standing with his arm around a man in a gray suit, Marcus Vale. Daniel's uncle was a limited partner in Marcus's firm, which meant Marcus was on the guest list. I need you to sit with how that felt. The one family event I'd been begged to stay away from, and the man who tried to erase me was invited. My sister told me not to embarrass her in front of Daniel's family. Daniel's family was funding the takeover of my company. And here is the part that mattered most, and the part I couldn't say to anyone. Marcus needed one thing to make a hostile move work. He needed a story that the founder was unfit, emotional, unstable, makes decisions based on personal relationships. That was his whole case, 4 years ago. And I was about to walk into a wedding where the CEO's sister's husband was a company manager, in front of 150 witnesses. If I stood up and made a scene, I would hand Marcus the exact story he needed, on video, at a wedding. So now you know why I sat in the back. It wasn't only humility, it was a company. The wedding was at a country club my sister could never actually afford. My mother made sure every guest knew Daniel's family had paid for it. I came alone. Plain navy dress, my father's scratched watch. In my purse, a folder Priya had prepared, and a speech I never gave. At the door, my mother saw me and her face tightened. "You came," she whispered, like it was a threat.
Sit in the back, and for God's sake, don't embarrass your sister tonight.
So I sat in the back. I watched my sister get married, and for about 4 minutes I was genuinely, stupidly happy for her. She looked beautiful. She looked like our father. Nobody in that room but me would have known that. Then came the reception. And the reception is where a family shows you exactly what it thinks of you. I was seated at table 19, the last one, next to a broken speaker and the kitchen door. The place card said, E. Whitmore, plus none. Someone had underlined, plus none. A guest handed me her empty plate on her way past. I smiled and took it and set it down. Across the room, my mother was introducing Chloe to Daniel's relatives as our family's only real success. I heard her say it. I looked down at my father's watch. I breathed. I let it go. I told myself, I did not come here to be seen. I came to see my sister get married. That is enough. And then a shadow fell across my table, and a voice I knew said my name.
Emma Whitmore. At table 19. Now that is poetry.
4 years older, same gray suit, same smile that never reaches anything. He pulled out the chair across from me and sat down like the table belonged to him.
Your family put you back here. Interesting. They must know something the market doesn't.
I asked him what he wanted. He said he wanted to talk, as friends, before Monday. Monday. That was the word. He had a filing ready for Monday morning.
19%, Emma. Sell me your block, take a very generous number, and go do something that makes you happy.
And then, quietly, the knife. He nodded at the head table, at Daniel.
Because a founder who secretly keeps her sister's husband on payroll. That's not a scandal I want to write, but I will.
He had known before I did. Of course he had. Daniel's uncle was his partner. That was the moment I understood the shape of the whole evening. He wasn't at that wedding for the cake. He was there to watch me either explode or stay silent, and both of them helped him. So I said the only thing I could say. I said, "Enjoy the reception, Marcus." He smiled, buttoned his jacket, and walked back toward the good tables. I sat there with my hands flat on that tablecloth so nobody could see them shaking. I texted Priya under the table, 4 words. Vale is at the wedding. She wrote back in 9 seconds. Leave, right now. Don't be in any video tonight. And she was right. Every instinct I had built in 9 years of business said, get up and walk out that door. I actually stood up. I had my purse in my hand. I was 6 steps from the exit. And then one of the servers, an older woman clearing table 18, touched my elbow. She said, "Sit down, honey. I've worked 400 of these. The ones they put in the back are always the ones who paid for something." She had no idea what she had just said. She was talking about money. I was thinking about 9 years. I sat back down. That is the entire reason I was still in that room 4 minutes later. One stranger, one sentence, and the whole rest of my life went a different direction. And then, at the front of the room, Daniel stood up to give the groom's speech. He started normally. He thanked his parents, he thanked Chloe, he made a joke about the seating chart that got a laugh. Then he stopped. He looked down at his notes, and then he folded them and put them in his pocket.
There's one more person I have to thank. Someone who has no idea how much she changed my life.
He started scanning the room, front tables, middle tables, and I felt my stomach drop because I knew where he was going to land. His eyes found me, in the back, in my plain dress, next to the broken speaker, and they went wide. Because Daniel had just realized who the bride's older sister actually was. And I want to be honest with you here. I did not want him to say it. I had a company to protect, and a man in a gray suit 4 tables away with a filing ready for Monday. I gave the smallest shake of my head. Please don't. And Daniel, quiet, careful, never makes a scene, Daniel, looked right at me and did it anyway.
3 years ago, I was about to give up. My startup had failed. I was 31 and broke, and I could not get a call back. Every interview ended the same way. And then one person read my resume, and instead of the failure, she asked me what it taught me. She hired me that same afternoon. She promoted me twice. She never once told me she had done either of those things. That person is the founder and CEO of Meridian. She is my boss. And 10 seconds ago, I found out she is my wife's sister.
The room did not gasp. It went completely silent, which is much worse. 150 people turned in their chairs to look at table 19, at the woman they had been told to ignore, at the woman who had just been handed a dirty plate, at me. My mother's face drained of color. Her wine glass, halfway to her mouth, just stopped in the air. My sister turned around slowly, and I watched the understanding climb into her face one piece at a time, because she finally understood. The colleagues she told me not to talk to, I employed them. The mess she was afraid I would look like? I had built the company paying the mortgages of half the people in that room. Daniel walked the whole length of that room in front of everyone and put out his hand. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry. I didn't know." I stood up, and I could feel every eye in that room on me and on my father's cheap scratched watch. Behind him, the whispering started, and it spread like a fire in dry grass. Daniel's mother, a surgeon, said out loud, "That's the CEO of Meridian? Her?" My aunt, who once told me to find a real job, suddenly could not meet my eyes. The cousins who ignored my calls for 6 years were now filming me on their phones, smiling. And at his table, Marcus Vale was not smiling. He was doing arithmetic. Because the story he had just watched was not, "Founder hides her brother-in-law." It was, "Founder hired a stranger who turned out to be family." 150 witnesses had just watched the groom prove that I had no idea who he was when I hired him. Daniel had just destroyed Marcus's entire case, in public, without knowing he was doing it. My mother rushed over, suddenly smiling, suddenly warm. "Emma, sweetheart, you never told us you were so successful." Sweetheart, a word she had not used for me in 20 years. Everyone was watching. This was it. This was the moment I could burn all of them down. And then something happened that I did not plan for, and it changed the ending of this story. Chloe stood up in her wedding dress, walked past my mother, and put a hand on the back of my chair to keep herself standing. She was shaking. Not the polite shaking of an embarrassed bride, the other kind.
Emma, do they know? Did you tell them?
I said, "Tell them what?" And my sister looked at me with an expression I had never once seen on her face. Fear. Here is what I did not know until that minute, standing at table 19 in a navy dress. The golden child was drowning. Chloe was $81,000 in debt. The condo my mother bragged about? 2 years behind. The car? Financed twice. The wedding dress? A credit line. Because being the family success is a job. and my mother had been paying her in praise instead of truth. Every year, Chloe had to look more successful than the year before, or she was going to become me. So she borrowed. And she performed. And she picked a wedding venue she could not afford to keep the performance alive. And 2 months before the wedding, she had gone to an advisory firm about consolidating her debt. I asked her the name of the firm. She said it. Ashcroft Vale. Marcus had not just been invited to that wedding. He had been sitting with my sister for 2 months, learning my family from the inside.
He asked so many questions about you. I thought he was being kind. I told him everything, Emma. I told him you were the failure.
And she started to cry. In front of everyone, on the best day she had spent 9 years pretending to deserve. 9 years I had wanted my sister to be sorry. And standing there, I did not want it anymore. Not like that. Because I finally saw it. She wasn't the winner of that family. She was just the other thing it did to a daughter. My mother was still talking. Something about how she always believed in me. Something about family sticking together. Marcus had turned in his seat to watch. He wanted the explosion. He needed the explosion. And I remembered something none of them knew. Something I had never told a single person. 14 months earlier, my father's old medical debt had come back and nearly taken my mother's house. The bank was 3 weeks from foreclosing. She never told me. She told Chloe, and Chloe had nothing to give. I found out from a title search my company's foundation ran on a completely different property. Quietly, through the foundation, I paid off every cent of it. Anonymously. My mother still believes a government relief program saved her home. It was me. The disappointment. Standing at table 19, I finally understood the whole shape of my own life. I did not need to destroy them. I had already quietly saved them, twice if you count tonight. So I did not pick up the sword. I picked up a glass. In that half-second, I felt my father's watch heavy on my wrist, and I heard his voice again. Don't chase their approval. He never said, don't crush the people who denied it, but I knew what he meant. Approval you take by force is worth nothing, and revenge, in front of a crying bride, would have put my father's name on it too. But I want to be very clear about something because I don't want you to think this was only sweetness. I walked over to Marcus Vale's table first. I put my hand on the back of his chair and I said one sentence, quietly. File on Monday if you want, but you just watched 150 people learn I hired him as a stranger. So did the 2 board members standing behind you. He did not say anything. He put his napkin on the table, and he looked, for the first time in 4 years, like a man who had lost a hand he had been holding for a long time. That was my revenge. 9 seconds, no volume, and nobody at that wedding even heard it. Then I walked back to my sister, and I did the harder thing. I raised my glass, and the whole silent room waited. Even my mother stopped smiling. To my sister Chloe, I said, and to Daniel, one of the finest people I have ever hired. My father taught me one thing. He said, don't chase approval. Build something real. Today, my sister built a family. That's real. And I'm proud of her. And then I added one line that was not for the room. It was for one person in it. And Chloe. Nobody in this family has to earn their seat at my table. Not anymore. Not ever again. I watched my sister's face break. And I watched my mother's face do something else entirely. It calculated. That difference told me everything about which of them I was going to be able to forgive. I finished my drink, I set the glass down, and I walked toward the door.
Emma, wait. Let's talk. About everything. You have to let me explain.
I looked at her hand on my arm, the first time she had reached for me in years, and I gently took it off. You don't owe me an explanation, I said. You owe Chloe a better example than the one you set tonight. I left before the cake. I did not need to see any more of it. The next morning, my phone had 41 messages. My mother, my aunts, cousins I had not heard from in a decade. One aunt asked if I could invest in her husband's idea. A cousin asked me to co-sign a car loan. A second cousin sent a business plan at 6 a.m. Not one of them wrote, "I'm sorry we treated you like nothing for 9 years." Not one. I did not reply to any of them. Money makes people remember you. It does not make them love you. On Monday, Ashcroft Vale did not file anything. On Wednesday, 2 of their limited partners withdrew. It turned out that half a dozen people at that wedding worked in finance, and all of them had watched a groom explain on video exactly how I hired him. Marcus spent 4 years building a story about a woman who could not separate business from family. He lost it at a family wedding. 6 weeks later, we bought his block back at a price he did not enjoy. Priya framed the term sheet. It's still in her office. And Daniel? Daniel we disclosed properly, the boring way, the Monday after the honeymoon. He kept his job and his team. He's still one of my best managers. He also still calls me ma'am in meetings, and I have given up trying to stop him. The video got out, of course. A cousin posted 11 seconds of it. By Thursday, it had 4 million views. Strangers wrote 1,000 comments about my mother. Some of them were cruel in a way that made me feel sick. I want to say something about that because a lot of you are about to type something in the comments. I did not want my mother destroyed by 10,000 people who do not know her. That is not justice. That is just a different mob. She called me once about it, crying, asking me to make them take it down. It was the first time she had ever asked me for help. And I couldn't. Nobody can. That is the part people forget when they wish for a viral moment. Meridian got 900 job applications in 1 week. 2 of them were from people at that wedding. One was from my cousin who filmed me. I had HR send him the standard rejection, on time, politely. I did read every single one of the other applications myself. That took me 3 weekends, and I would do it again. Because somewhere in a stack like that is a 31-year-old with a failed startup and an 8-month gap. 3 months after the wedding, Chloe asked to meet me for coffee. Alone. No mother, no audience. She admitted she had told Daniel's family I was the black sheep. A whole invented story, so she would look better next to it.
I spent my whole life standing on you to look taller. And you let me. Why?
I told her, because tearing you down would have made me exactly what they always said I was. And then she took an envelope out of her bag and put it on the table between us, and her hands were shaking again.
I was helping Mom clear out the attic. This was in a shoebox with Dad's glasses. It has your name on it.
My father's handwriting. Shaky, uneven, the letters getting bigger where his hand had failed him. Dated 11 days before he died. The week he kept asking my mother for paper. She had given him the paper. She had just never given me the letter. 9 years. It sat in a shoebox for 9 years, through every dinner where she said I was still figuring things out. I did not open it at the table. I drove to a parking lot, and I sat in my car, and I opened it there, alone, like a coward. It was 6 sentences long. I am going to read you all 6. Emma. If they are reading this to you, I ran out of time to say it properly, so I will say it badly. Your mother will need someone to be the proud story after I go. It will not be you, and that is not your fault. You had $40 in a jar when you were 10, and you would not let me touch it. I have never been prouder of anything in my life. The watch is not worth anything. I know. Look inside the back anyway. Don't chase their approval, Emma. Build something real. And when you have built it, be kinder than we were to you. I am not worried about you. I am worried about your sister. She was never given the choice to fail. Dad. I sat in that parking lot for 40 minutes. Then I took the watch off my wrist for the first time in 9 years. The caseback was so scratched I had never once thought to look at it. It took me 10 minutes and a butter knife to get it open. Inside, on the metal, in tiny engraving, was a date and 4 words. The date was the day I sold my first bracelet. The 4 words were, Day 1. Keep going. He had it engraved when I was 10 years old. He carried it on his wrist for 18 years and never told me. Every board meeting, every investor who called me unstable, every family dinner where my name was skipped, it was on my wrist the whole time. I just had not looked. I called Chloe from that parking lot and I read her the last sentence, the one about her. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "He was right. I never got to fail." And she cried in a way I had not heard since we were kids. We are not fixed. I did not pay off her debt, and she did not ask me to. I did something better. I sat with her for one entire Saturday, and we built a real plan, on paper, in her handwriting, with her name on it. She is $31,000 down as of this month. She sends me a photo of the spreadsheet every Friday. I have never once asked her to. My mother and I are not close. She has apologized twice, and both times the apology was about how it made her look. Some doors take longer to open. Some may never fully open, and I have made my peace with that. I did tell her about the letter. She said she must have put it somewhere safe and forgotten. That was the last conversation we had about my father. I still wear the watch every single day. I put the case back on crooked, and I have left it that way on purpose. Because now, every time it catches the light wrong, I remember that the proof was always with me. I just had not opened it. They told me I would embarrass the family. It turned out I was the family. They just could not see it. So now you tell me, like I promised. After everything, who should have been embarrassed that day? My father built me quietly, in an engraving I did not read for 18 years. And in the end, quietly, I got to build something back. Day 1. Keep going. Thank you for listening.